Faith is one of the most powerful forces in the world. It has the ability to move mountains, to open doors, to bring healing, and to lead you into a life beyond anything you could ever imagine. Faith is not just believing when everything is going right. It's trusting when you can't see the way. It's holding on when things don't make sense, when the odds are against you, when the situation looks impossible. Faith is knowing that even when you don't have the answers, God does. There are moments in life when challenges come, when disappointments happen, when prayers seem unanswered. In those moments, it's easy to let doubt creep in, to question whether things will ever change, to wonder if you've been forgotten. But faith says, I may not see it yet, but I believe God is working behind the scenes. Faith says, I don't understand this, but I trust that God is making a way. Faith is not based on what you see. It's based on what you know deep in your heart, that God is faithful, that He is for you, that He has already gone before you to make crooked places straight. Faith is not about having all the answers. It's about trusting even when things don't make sense, even when you can't see how it's all going to work out. It's easy to have faith when everything is going right, when doors are opening, when prayers are being answered. But real faith is built in the moments when nothing seems to be happening, when you're believing but not yet seeing, when you're praying but still waiting. That's when faith becomes real. Not in the easy times, but in the uncertain times. In the moments when you have every reason to give up, yet you choose to believe anyway. There are times in life when you won't see the way forward. The situation looks impossible. The odds are stacked against you. And every voice around you says it's not going to happen. That's when faith has to rise up. That's when you have to make the choice to believe, not based on what you see, but based on what you know. You know that God is faithful. You know that He has a plan. You know that He's never failed before, and He's not going to start now. Think about how many times in life you faced something that seemed like it would never change. You wondered how you would make it through, how the problem would be solved, how the situation could possibly turn around. But somehow it did. Somehow doors opened. Somehow the right people showed up. Somehow what seemed impossible became possible. That wasn't by accident. That was faith at work. That was God moving in ways you couldn't see at the time. And if He's done it before, He will do it again. People give up right before their breakthrough. They let what they see in the natural talk them out of what they know in their heart. They say, it's been too long, or I don't see anything changing, or maybe it's not meant to be. But faith is about believing before you see it. It's about declaring victory when it still looks like defeat. It's about trusting in the unseen, knowing that just because nothing seems to be happening doesn't mean God isn't working. The truth is, things are happening behind the scenes that you can't see. Right now, God is lining up the right opportunities, the right connections, the right moments. Right now, He's shifting things in your favor. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean He's not working. Just because the situation looks the same doesn't mean a change isn't coming. Think about a seed planted in the ground. You don't see anything happening at first. It looks like nothing is changing. But underneath the soil, roots are growing, foundations are forming, life is taking shape. If you judged it too soon, you'd think nothing was happening. But give it time and that seed will break through the soil and become what it was always meant to be. The same is true in life. Just because you don't see growth right away doesn't mean it's not happening. Faith is trusting that the process is at work, even when you can't see it. Maybe you're believing for something right now, a dream, a breakthrough, a healing, a relationship to be restored. Maybe you've been waiting for months or even years, and you're wondering if it's ever going to happen. Let this be a reminder. Faith says it's already in motion. Faith says, I may not see it yet, but I know it's coming. Faith says, I'm not moved by what I see, I'm moved by what I believe. The challenge is to keep believing, even when there's no evidence of change. Keep speaking victory, even when the situation still looks the same. Keep expecting, keep preparing, keep trusting, because the moment you let go of doubt and grab hold of faith is the moment things start to shift in your favor. It may not happen overnight. It may not happen the way you expected. But if you keep believing, keep standing, keep trusting, you will see it come to pass. What looks impossible now will one day be your testimony. What seems too far out of reach now will one day be your reality. Because faith isn't about what you see. It's about knowing deep in your heart that the best is yet to come. There are moments in life when things don't happen as quickly as we'd like. We pray, we believe, we do everything we know how to do, but it seems like nothing is changing. The doors aren't opening. The opportunity isn't coming. The situation looks the same. That's when faith is tested. Not in the moments when everything is going right, but in the seasons of waiting, in the times when you don't understand why it's taking so long. It's easy to trust when the answer comes right away, but the real question is, can you trust when you don't see any signs of progress? Can you believe even when there's no evidence that things are moving in your favor? That's what faith is all about. Trusting in the unseen, knowing that just because you don't see it yet doesn't mean it's not on the way. One of the hardest things about faith is learning to wait for the right time. It's easy to get frustrated when things aren't happening on our schedule. But what if the delay isn't a denial? What if it's actually part of the process? Sometimes the timing isn't right because something is still being prepared. Maybe God is developing something in you before He takes you to the next level. Maybe the opportunity you've been praying for isn't ready yet, and if you stepped into it too soon, it wouldn't be what you expected. Just like a seed that's planted in the ground, growth is happening even when you can't see it. It's under the surface, where no one can see, where no progress is visible. But just because it's hidden doesn't mean nothing is happening. At the right time, when the conditions are just right, that seed breaks through the soil and becomes what it was meant to be. In the same way, just because you don't see movement in your life doesn't mean things aren't shifting. Just because your prayers haven't been answered yet doesn't mean they're not going to be answered. The key is to stay in faith even when it doesn't make sense, even when nothing looks different. Too often, people give up too soon. They let frustration convince them that it's never going to happen. But what if you're closer than you think? What if the breakthrough is right around the corner? What if all that's required is for you to keep believing, keep trusting, keep preparing for what's ahead? When you live by faith, you don't let circumstances dictate your attitude. You don't let delays make you discouraged. Instead, you wake up every day with an expectation, knowing that things can change at any moment. You don't live by what you see, you live by what you know. That God is faithful, that He is working behind the scenes, that He has already arranged the right people, the right opportunities, the right moments. The key is to not let what looks like silence make you think nothing is happening. At the same time, faith is not just about waiting. It's about overcoming fear and doubt. Fear has a way of whispering lies, trying to convince you that what you're believing for is never going to happen. It tells you that you're not good enough, that the situation is too difficult, that you might as well settle where you are. Fear tries to keep you from stepping into the fullness of what's meant for you, but faith pushes past the fear. Faith says, I don't see the way yet, but I trust that it's coming. Faith says, I'm not going to let what's happening around me shake what I know in my heart. The moment you stop living in fear and start living in faith, things begin to shift. You stop settling for less than what was promised to you. You stop holding back, waiting for everything to be perfect before you step forward. Faith doesn't wait for everything to make sense. It steps out even when things are uncertain. Faith declares victory even when there are still obstacles. Faith moves forward, knowing that the way will be made clear as you go. Maybe you've been playing it safe, letting fear keep you from taking the next step. Maybe you've been waiting for everything to line up before you believe it's possible. But that's not how faith works. Faith requires you to believe before you see it. It requires you to trust before you have all the answers. It requires you to move forward, knowing that if you take that first step, the path will be revealed. Right now, you have a choice. You can let fear talk you out of what's meant for you, or you can choose to stand in faith. You can listen to the doubts, or you can declare that something greater is ahead. You may not see it yet, but faith says it's already in motion. Faith says, I may not know how, but I know who. When you make that decision to trust, when you let go of the fear and embrace faith, you step into a new level of confidence, a new level of peace, and a new level of expectation. And that's when you begin to see doors open, opportunities arise, and things shift in your favor like never before. There are moments in life when what we see doesn't match what we're believing for. The situation looks the same, the struggle hasn't changed, the door still hasn't opened. That's when faith has to kick in. Faith is trusting that even when nothing looks different, things are shifting in your favor. It's easy to get discouraged when we don't see progress, but just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. The most important work happens beneath the surface, where no one can see. The foundation is being laid, the pieces are coming together, and at the right time, everything will fall into place. Faith requires patience. It's not always about immediate results. It's about trusting in the timing of what's meant for you. So often people let delays convince them that what they're believing for is never going to happen. They see time passing and they think if it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. But that's not how faith works. What's meant for you has an appointed time. You don't have to force it. You don't have to make it happen on your own. All you have to do is keep believing, keep preparing, and keep expecting, because when the time is right, what's been planned for you will show up, and it will be better than anything you could have orchestrated yourself. Think about a door that's locked. You can push on it, pull on it, try to force it open, but if it's not the right time, it's not going to budge. That's not because it's never going to open, it's because it's meant to open at the right moment. If you trust, if you wait, if you don't let frustration talk you out of it, the right door will open and you'll walk into something greater than what you could have planned. But too many people spend their energy trying to break through doors that aren't meant for them, or doors that just aren't ready yet. When you walk in faith, you don't have to fight for what's meant for you. You don't have to struggle, manipulate, or stress about how it's going to happen. You just keep walking, and at the right time, what's meant for you will open effortlessly. Faith is what allows you to overcome fear and doubt. Fear tries to convince you that it's too late, that the challenge is too big, that you don't have what it takes. Fear magnifies obstacles, makes them seem impossible to move. But faith looks at the same situation and says, I may not see the way, but I know there is one. Faith doesn't focus on the problem. People let fear hold them back from stepping into what's waiting for them. They're afraid to take the next step, afraid of what could go wrong, afraid of what they might lose. But when you live by faith, you don't live by what could go wrong. You live by the expectation that things will go right. You live with a confidence that no matter what comes against you, you're not alone. No matter how big the obstacle, there is a way through it. No matter how impossible it seems, nothing is beyond the reach of what's meant for you. Living by faith means walking boldly even when you don't have all the answers. It means stepping out, trusting that the details will come together as you move forward. It means not letting the fear of uncertainty keep you stuck. The reality is, if you wait until you have every detail figured out, you'll never take the step. If you wait until there's no risk, you'll never move forward. But faith requires action. It requires stepping out even when things are still uncertain, even when there are still questions, even when you don't know how it's all going to work out. Maybe you're in a place right now where you feel like nothing is moving. Maybe you've been waiting, believing, and trusting, but you're starting to wonder if it's ever going to happen. Don't let discouragement talk you out of what's coming. Don't let fear convince you to settle. The timing may not be what you expected, but that doesn't mean it's not coming. The opportunity, the breakthrough, the right relationship, the next level, it's already in motion. The challenge is to stay in faith while you wait, to keep speaking victory even when you don't see it yet. When you refuse to let fear and doubt take root, when you make the choice to believe even in the waiting season, you set yourself up for something greater than you imagine. The key is to trust that what's ahead is already planned out, and that at the right time, you'll step into everything that's meant for you. You don't have to worry, stress, or force it. Just keep believing, keep preparing, and keep moving forward, because what's ahead is greater than what's behind. There are moments in life when it feels like nothing is changing. You've been praying, believing, staying faithful, yet the situation looks the same. It's easy to think, maybe it's not meant to be. Maybe this is just the way things will always be. But just because you don't see movement doesn't mean God isn't working. Just because it's taking longer than you expected doesn't mean the promise isn't on the way. The most powerful work happens in the unseen, beneath the surface, where no one can see. The foundation is being laid. The right people are being positioned, and at the right time, everything will come together. Faith is trusting in the process, even when there's no evidence of change. It's choosing to believe that delays are not denials. Sometimes the reason things haven't happened yet isn't because they won't, it's because there's still preparation taking place. You may not be able to see it, but something is shifting behind the scenes. What's meant for you has already been set in motion. You don't have to force it, stress about it, or figure out all the details. You just have to trust, keep showing up, and know that when the time is right, things will come together in a way you never imagined. People give up right before their breakthrough. They let the waiting period convince them that what they're believing for isn't going to happen. They stop expecting, stop preparing, stop trusting. But the truth is, sometimes you have to go through the waiting season before you step into the winning season. Just because you don't see anything happening doesn't mean the answer isn't on the way. The timing isn't a mistake. If it hasn't happened yet, it's because something greater is being prepared. Faith requires action. It's not just about waiting. It's about stepping out, even when things are uncertain. You don't have to know all the details before you move forward. You don't have to have everything figured out before you take the next step. When you trust, when you believe, when you walk in faith, the right opportunities, the right connections, and the right moments will show up exactly when you need them. The doors won't just open, they'll open at the perfect time. Fear tries to keep you stuck. It will whisper all the reasons why it's not going to work, why you're not qualified, why it's too late. But fear is a liar. Fear magnifies obstacles, makes problems look bigger than they are, tries to convince you that you should settle where you are. But faith does the opposite. Faith reminds you that you're not alone, that there's a greater plan, that the path is already laid out. When you stop listening to fear and start walking in faith, you'll find that what looked impossible wasn't impossible at all. It was just waiting for you to take that first step. Living by faith means you don't let fear and doubt dictate your choices. It means you don't settle for less than what was promised to you. You don't let delays make you think it's never going to happen. Instead, you wake up each day with expectation, knowing that things can shift at any moment. You go through life with a confidence that what's ahead is greater than what's behind. You declare victory even before you see it. You stay prepared because you know the door is going to open, the opportunity is going to come, the breakthrough is already on the way. Maybe you're in a place right now where you're feeling discouraged. You've been believing for something, but it hasn't happened yet. You've been praying for an answer, but you're still waiting. Let this be your reminder. You're closer than you think. Don't let time convince you that nothing is happening. Every second, something is shifting, something is moving, something is working in your favor. Your job isn't to figure out how. It's simply to keep believing, to keep standing, to keep trusting. Because when you stay in faith, you set yourself up for something greater than you imagine. The key is to keep pressing forward even when it looks like nothing is changing. Keep showing up. Keep preparing. Keep speaking victory. You may not see it yet, but the answer is already in motion. The right people, the right opportunities, the right doors, they're already lined up. If you don't quit, if you don't settle, if you don't let discouragement talk you out of what's meant for you, you will see it come to pass. The breakthrough is coming. The shift is happening. And when it does, it's going to be bigger, better, and more amazing than anything you could have imagined. What's ahead is greater than what's behind. The delays, the detours, the moments of uncertainty, none of it is wasted. Every challenge, every waiting season, every unanswered question is preparing you for something greater. When you walk by faith, you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to see the whole picture. And you don't have to know how it's all going to come together. You just have to trust that the right doors will open. The right people will show up. And the right opportunities will come at exactly the right time. Maybe you've been waiting, believing, standing strong, but you're starting to wonder if it's ever going to happen. This is not the time to shrink back. This is not the time to let fear and doubt talk you out of what's meant for you. Keep believing, keep expecting, keep preparing, because what's coming is greater than anything you've seen before. When the door opens, when the breakthrough comes, when the opportunity presents itself, it's going to be bigger, better, and more fulfilling than you ever imagined.